I've been looking forward to watching Psycho Pass. Why? Because it combines two great things. Production IG and Gen Urobuchi. Production IG being the creators of Ghost in the Shell, which is kind of awesome, by the way. And Gen Urobuchi, who was the scriptwriter to Madoka Magica, and also basically the creator of Fate Zero, even though he was just building off of what happened in Fate Stay Night and that whole universe. He basically made Fate Zero, and I would like to remind people, even if you don't think so, in this reviewer's opinion, both Madoka Magica and Fate Zero were kind of awesome. So yes, expectations were high for Psycho Pass, because I expect this show to be amazing! Was it? Well, it was not bad. See, because I went in with some unreal expectations, right? I went in thinking that this would be like Fate Zero if it were Ghost in the Shell. And that's not an unreasonable thought, but expectation-wise, that might have been a little high. The world of Psycho Pass has this computer system that can basically categorize everybody's psychological profile into what they call hues, which is just the colors of the rainbow and all the individual colors in between. It's like going into a hardware store and picking up all those little palettes to find out what kind of paint you want, except instead of just green, blue, it's like light green, forest green, lime green, puke green, that kind of thing. So everybody's psychological profile has different colors depending on their mood, and so forth. And the darker that your hue gets, the more likely that you will become a mass-murdering psychopath, at least according to their methodology. So the story is about their police force in this futuristic universe that goes out and either detains or eliminates people of darker hues. Now, as I am sitting here, I've only seen 4 episodes, so there's a lot of stuff unexplained. For example, for whatever reason, once you get past a certain darkness in your hue, there is no reformation. There is nothing you can do. You might as well be shot and killed right there, which is what they do a lot of the times. But it does not explain how some of these criminals that have been categorized by this computer system are still alive and, in fact, working with the police department. Now, granted, they are on a short leash, and if their handlers believe that they're, about to go AWOL, they have full right to basically shoot and kill them on the spot. But why are they there in the first place? How did this come to be? Episode 1 actually left me the most confused, I think, on this subject, because they go after this guy who has kidnapped this woman, and a lot of really weird shit happens, because he's basically gone insane. Okay? But he wasn't the interesting story I found. I actually found the story of the woman he kidnapped more interesting. Because presumably she had a fairly normal day. She just happened to get kidnapped by this psychopath and then detained and tortured and raped. And then she got carried and dragged around the city. And then she watched her kidnapper get disintegrated right in front of her with his blood spilled all over her face and everything. Not the best of days, to be sure, but it gets more interesting after that. You see, because the police force have these really awesome guns that have this, internet uplink to the aforementioned system, where if you point it at someone, it'll tell you immediately that person's hue and whether or not they should be shot, which is a controversial system to have. But if it decides that the person is too light of a hue and doesn't need to be shot, it will let the gun be fired. Which is great, because if you happen to like this particular system and you always are in, the very light hues, as they like to put it, then you're safe, and you have nothing to worry about, and you will never get shot in your life. But the darker your hue becomes, the more violent this gun becomes. It goes from a stun gun to a killing gun to a disintegrator. It's kind of badass. But going back to this girl, she went through this horrible ordeal, and in our society right now, one would assume that if something like that happened, she'd be taken to the hospital, she'd be taken care of, she'd probably be in therapy for a while, but for all intents and purposes, she would be fine. Except in this universe, they pointed a gun at her. Why did they do this? To determine, using this wonderful system, what her hue was. And the gun determined that her hue was so dark that she deserved to be shot and killed right on the spot. Now, we have our main character, who is a wonderful female police officer, or whatever officer. I don't really know if they really call police, but female police officer, first day on the job, and she doesn't want to see this woman get shot and killed. So she stops it, and the woman is actually taken away and put into therapy. But the system would have shot and killed that tortured woman. That's very interesting to me. Because at what point do they decide, okay, you're not going to get shot, okay, you're going to get shot? There's a lot of this gray area in between they haven't explained yet. Because we know some of the main characters are criminals. They've admitted this. You could point a gun at them and the gun would quite willingly allow you to shoot them. And that's fine, but how did that come to pass exactly? At what point did they do something that someone looked at them and was just like, you know what? We should put you to work. Because everybody else, they seem to have no problem with just shooting and killing right there. Now, there's still tons of time. As I said, there's only been 4 episodes, and there's a lot that they could explain. So I guess the question becomes, do I like it so far? I'm not so sure, actually. I don't hate it. I don't dislike it, but, I don't know. It has this thing that I need to see more. I want to know where this show is going. I want to see what happens, really. And also, it's a show that starts in medias res. At the beginning of episode 1, they have this scene in a tower that makes absolutely no sense, and then they ignore it for, like, ever, and it's going to come back. We know it's going to come back, because it always comes back. But they don't explain it. It doesn't really need to be explained, because it's happening way further down the line, and we'll get there, apparently. But we don't know what that was about. I'm still curious about this world. I don't know why this world exists or how it came to be. We might never find out why it exists, but it's one of those ones that I just want to sit and actually experience. I want to see what it's like. I want to see what Urobuchi does with this. So some people might not like it. Some people might be turned off by it. Maybe it's a little bit higher up and confusing for a lot of people, but it's an interesting good versus evil type show thus far. I am expecting this, because it is an Urobuchi show, to pull a 180 at some point. Or maybe he won't. Maybe this will be the first time he doesn't. That'll be interesting. Because as good as his last 2 shows that he's been involved with are, being Madoka Magica and Fate Zero, I do remember the other one he was involved with, which was Phantom. Now, I never watched the original Phantom. Phantom actually had 2 shows. There was the original Phantom, that was a short OVA, and then there was Requiem for the Phantom, which was a full-on series that B-Train did. Yes, it was B-Train. And he was probably more involved with the OVA than he was the adaptation. But the adaptation is what I saw, and the adaptation I liked. Until the ending. So, if that kind of thing happens again, I will be disappointed. But until then, I have high hopes, but low expectations. So, there's Psycho Pass. If you have thoughts on the first 4 episodes of Psycho Pass, post them down in the comments. If there's another show that came out this season that you'd like to know my thoughts of thus far, if I have any, post it down in the comments. And if you see it's already been posted down in the comments, upvote that stuff, because that's just being a neighborly person. Someone already suggested it. Upvote them, because that's cool. And Frosty. And I like Frosty, because I'm kind of a Frosty-ish person. Anyway, this is getting off track. Avoid telling spoilers if you come from the future, which is inevitable. And until next time, stay frosty, everyone.